not sure if it says more about Adam Brooks or more about the bottom six centers, or more specifically the bottom line center, and how much confidence that Bergevin and Ducharme have in whoever's going to be taking up that spot, because they obviously feel that there's a spot on the team for Adam Brooks, and there is on that fourth line. But that was Ryan Paling's job to take, and he did not show that in the preseason. And Cedric Pat has been injured. Matthew Perreault, he was fine, but it's an interesting guy to throw into the mix with his skill. Like, he did score, like he's scored at the NHL level in a very small sample size, gritty goals, front of the net stuff. But 4 goals in 11 games, it's not nothing. He can score. He has the skill to do it. It'll be interesting to see how he slots in and how the guy around him react to that, and if that picks up their game at all.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised with the claim of Adam Brooks, mostly because well, from the rumblings that I had heard on my end, and also with the injuries on the back end, I thought the Canadians would have like launched themselves on a guy like Andre Suster from Tampa Bay, who was also put on waivers, mostly because he's a huge dude. He's like 6'7" or something, and he's a right-handed shot, but he can play on both sides of the ice. And I thought, okay, well, maybe this is a guy that Marc Bergevin will really love. But turns out, no, they went with Adam Brooks, and I'm going to agree with what Josh said. That yeah, I think it's a situation where the fourth line center role is still up for grabs. Ryan Paling didn't prove that he can hold an everyday NHL job yet. Cedric Paquette had limited time because of his injury. So he still has to show that, that the role is his. And it also shows that Mathieu Perreault, he hasn't played center in a while. So he's still, maybe not comfortable enough to be taking the faceoffs on a regular basis. I think maybe that the Habs also put a claim on Alex Barré-Boulet, who ended up going to
They
Seattle.
definitely did. He was their first choice. There's no way he wasn't.
Yeah.
I was more surprised that Anaheim didn't pick him up. Though I'm not quite sure where Seattle would rank in terms of
first.
Oh, they were first? Okay, yeah. So I would also
first, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd assume that Anaheim also would have put in a claim because Joël Bouchard was a former coach of Alex Barré-Boulet, and he loved him. So I think, yeah, that there was no way Montreal was getting him. And I think Seattle got a really solid bottom six center there. And to a lesser extent, I think the Habs also got a pretty solid fourth line center in Adam Brooks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's never enough depth on any position. And this is another situation where, again, hey, you never know. Like, someone is on a cold streak, you could replace him, and Brooks will easily fill that role. And at the same time, well, the cool thing with Paling is that he doesn't have to clear waivers to go down to Laval. So if he really doesn't work out, you send him down, and we got some backup in order to replace him. Now that
exactly, and worst case scenario, you just waive Adam Brooks later and lose him to waivers, right? Yeah. Like there's no risk here.
Exactly. Obviously, salary cap might become an issue with time. You mentioned earlier, Sebastian, with Paul Byron, eventually come back probably after the holidays, Price as well. But I mean, that's the glories of accountants and hockey and everything. It's their job to do this, and not us. And also our friends at capfriendly.com has all the answers as well. Love that site. And but now, Josh, I mean, you're a glass half full kind of guy, and we always rely on you for a good chuckle and a good smile. So I'm going to ask you to look at the Montreal Canadiens squad and put maybe some, rose goggles on or something, because even I, admittedly, everyone knows by now that we write articles on the side for various sites and everything. And one of my recent ones was talking about how we went from this giant high of euphoria in the playoffs, and then we just went, and we just crashed. And now, like, a lot of people, Sebastian being one of them, are actually saying, yeah, we're not going to make the playoffs anymore. So, I mean, Josh, please tell us something positive about this team.
Well, got a first line of Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki, and that's good enough for me.
That's going to be fun to watch, man.
It's going to be totally amazing. Especially, it's going to be interesting to see how they're used because you pick up Christian Dvorak and you lose Philip Deneau, and Deneau's one more the premier defending center in the league. So Nick Suzuki got a bit of the easier matchups last year, but it's going to be interesting to see if he gets those full number one center times against Matthews and Bergeron, those types in the league. But if he's kind of taken away from those players, I think he can truly dominate point per game. We're looking at, I could say Cole Caulfield's gonna get 30 goals. That's my dream. Yeah, that's dream. We'll see. And
well, we said it earlier, right? Unless Spencer Knight ends the year with a 1.5 GAA, I mean, Caulfield's gonna run away with the Calder at the very least, though.
Yeah, then we won't have to worry about Spencer Knight anymore because he's gonna win the Calder and then fall off apparently.
Sebastian, okay, so how about you tell us what you told me, because we had a fun conversation on Saturday after the game. We were talking about the Habs, then you made this big hot take being like, yeah, Pat, the Canadiens are not making the playoffs. And I almost choked on my spaghetti when we were eating.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. No, I mean, again, I didn't make a blanket statement like that. It was more just with the Atlantic Division this year and the team I'm seeing right now, I would be very pleasantly surprised, but like still very surprised to see the Habs make the playoffs. I think it's gonna be a pretty fun team offensively. I just think defensively it's gonna be a little bit chaotic. Again, like as Josh was saying, a first line of Suzuki and Caulfield is going to be amazing fun to watch. And like Josh, you said that your prediction was 30 goals for Caulfield. Mine was 25, and I think Patrick's was 20. So we have a nice little step ladder there.
Yeah.
But I'm also looking forward to watching Jonathan Drouin this season and just seeing if he can really grow into a skilled role with consistent line mates. And at the same time, like there are other storylines that are going to be fun on offense, right? Like I'm going to look at Adam Brooks. I think he's really fun. I think Mathieu Perreault is going to be a really fun fourth liner when he's in the lineup. Same thing with Yoel Armia. Like, is he going to find some more consistency? Maybe, right? Maybe that contract is going to be a little kick in the behind to really get like a bit more consistency
that line
offensively.
Was fantastic.
It really was.
That line was fantastic. Yeah.
And like Jake Evans is going to be fun. It's just defensively, I'm so worried because I mean, it's going to be better once Edmondson's back. But even then, like Edmondson, Petrie, solid first pairing, sure, right? But then it gets a bit dicier, especially considering I don't really trust how the defensive coaches are going to put out the line mates, like the pairings, because if they roll with that Savard-Sherratt pairing, I'm going to be crying inside. But yeah, and then goaltending, this is the biggest question mark for the team, right? Like, when does Carey Price return? And as Will Scouch was saying earlier, like, can Jake Allen be that starting goaltender? Because we saw that in St. Louis with Jake Allen, that he struggled as a starter and was phenomenal as a backup, right? It's just, he's a typical like 1B goalie. And like, he was really good last season, but with Samuel Montembeault as his backup, he's going to get the vast majority of the starts. So it's a lot of question marks, and just so it's a really big hill to climb. And it's not like the wild card spots are going to be easy to get either, right? Like, you're going to have to fight out like Boston basically, and then like Washington, Pittsburgh are going to be in the mix. The Islanders are going to be in there. The Flyers could be okay. I don't know. It's the Flyers. Same with the Devils. Lots of question marks there, but it's just a lot would have to go right for the Habs this season. And even being optimistic, I don't see that. Like, I can see the Habs having a repeat of that season with Max Domi with his breakout, where it was really fun to watch and they were close to making the playoffs with the wild card spot, but they just barely miss out. That's my optimistic prediction. And then more pessimistic, might actually be better for the team getting a high draft pick in a very strong draft class.
I think the season as a whole is going to rely heavily upon Dominic Duchamp. Even before and after the guys like Joel Edmondson and Mike Hoffman, and hopefully Carey Price comes back. And the reason being is that he's the one who's going to have to make this team adapt to this current reality. That is, first of all, we're back to 82 games, which is something we haven't seen in a while. And to make matters even worse, it's a condensed 82 games because we got the Olympics in February. So now the issue at the same time is that no matter what way you want to put it, I mean, like, we're having fun here. I got Josh to say something positive, and then Sebastian chimed in with something a little more, okay, I'm going to say neutral. I don't want to pick on you, dude. But
realistic.
okay, realistic.
You can paint me as the negative.
Okay, so you're the negative Nancy, and you're the positive Pete, Josh. And so we're looking at the defensive core. I mean, no matter what way you try to stir it, I mean, it's just not as strong as last year, just because you're replacing Shea Weber with David Saval, and that's just the way it is, even though that's not the role that he's supposed to get. Now, that being said, it's going to be up to Ducharme to really apply a system that works, in the sense that, we're going to have to score goals, but we really need every forward to come back and play responsibly on the defensive end as well, which might mean we're not going to see as aggressive forechecking that we saw last year. I think, to be honest, we're going to see a very similar style that we saw in the playoffs, which I like to call the trap on steroids, essentially, where there was a lot of like locking down in the neutral zone, and even back then to cover the slot as much as possible, and then they totally relied on speed in order to break out. Hence why we had some spectacular goals, like we saw with Paul Byron breaking out. Cole Caulfield, like, showed his speed more than once. Even Jake Evans as well, before he went down with that injury, like, he was showing a tremendous amount of grit and speed, and grinded his way into Joshua Rosa's heart. There, I said it.
It's so great. This preseason, I hope he could keep it up, because he was just amazing. And if he could keep it up for this year, he's going to do some special things. Don't break up that third line. That third line has been probably Montreal's best this whole preseason, and it's going to be exciting to see what they can pull off. Real hockey comes.
I think we can all agree Armia, Evans, and Gallagher is the new Tatar, Danault, Gallagher. That's going to be the shutdown line that could potentially even score some big goals as well.
But the question then is, does that mean that when Mike Hoffman comes back from injury, that you're putting him on the fourth line?
Why not?
No, I'm totally good with it. Like, I'm very good with it, because he's not a very good 5-on-5 player, but he's being paid a decent amount of money, and he's gonna not like being on the fourth line. So there's
always that professional risk. You're right. You're putting a guy who's making over $4 million a year on the fourth line,
and you're starting him out there, right? Like, you're
out there, yeah.
You're not giving a 30-goal scorer the benefit of the doubt.
I think it might also, it's also going to depend on like how the first three line rolls out, because if you got a guy like, even let's say Drouin, for example, if he struggles out of the gate, then he might end up playing on the fourth line. So yeah, there's going to be some spots to take, because like I said, Mike Hoffin's going to come back, Paul Byron's going to come back at some point, and you still have to let him play. So we'll see. We'll see, like, there's a lot of depth, but there's a lot of salary and a lot of pride as well that's going to be played with. On that note, I mean, it again, the big question as well is going to be, which Jake Allen are we going to see between the pipes? Are we going to see the Jake Allen, who carried Montreal for most of the year? Are we going to see Jake Allen, the decent second, but like basically the backup goaltender that, is going to be 50-50 on his games? And also, whether you like it or not, there's a tremendous amount of pressure on the shoulders of Samuel Montembeault, because now the Canadiens basically said, okay, now we got you off waivers. You said you didn't play enough, but now you're going to play. This is your chance, and you're going to play in your hometown on top of that. No pressure, kid. Right?
He did play well in that 6-2 game.
He did.
For giving up 6 goals.
He really
played
did.
Well.
Yeah, he was solid in that game.
He just got completely hung out to dry by his entire defense core.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you know what, boys? The fun starts on Wednesday against Toronto. So our arch rivals, as always, along with the Boston Bruins, of course.